Hi folks, I thought I would make a video on the subject of Bible prophecy. The reason it's on my mind is because it's not a subject that I've touched on before, and I see it used sometimes by Christians as a kind of ace up their sleeve in the defense of their religion. What I mean is, if they can point to undeniably fulfilled prophecies from the Bible, the odds against which would be astronomical at happening randomly, if they can point to that as real, well, then there's nothing much can stand against that in an argument. But the big question is, are these prophecies truly real prophecies when you examine them closely? Let's pick a few. This first one is one that impressed me back when I was a Christian. It is from the book of Micah, one of the minor prophets from the Old Testament. I'm going to quote you something from Micah chapter 5, first couple of verses. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will rule over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. So, this seems to be a reference to the promised Jewish Messiah, whom Christians believe is Jesus. And Bethlehem, well, we all know that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. That's how the story goes. And I can quote from Matthew chapter 2, just to show you that that is indeed the case. Verse 1, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, blah blah blah. Okay? So, there you have a prophecy that Jesus would be born, well, that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. And here we have the biblical record written later that the Messiah was indeed born in Bethlehem. Now, on the surface, that seems pretty amazing, as long as you don't think too deeply about it. Now, let's remember, we don't have any records of Scripture from before, I think it's 125 AD, where we have a few fragments from the Gospel of John. And most of what we have from the New Testament is from much later, 3rd and 4th century. So, we're relying on those to tell us the truth, a lot of which was written hundreds of years after the alleged events. Now, it's very easy for someone to simply write down the fulfillment of the prophecy, whether that was Matthew the author or someone else whom Matthew is drawing upon as a source, if indeed Matthew is indeed the actual author of the Gospel, right? I mean, I could make a video right now. I could set my watch to 2009, the past, right? And I could say, in Christmas 2010, we're going to have the worst winter in Britain for over 20 years. I prophesy this. And I can maybe set my watch and show the watch on camera that it says 2009. Yet I've recorded it today, after the event. You know what I'm getting at here? It's just words on paper. It doesn't actually mean anything. Now, on the same theme, Matthew chapter 24 appears to prophesy the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, which is an event that happened, I think it was AD 70. And it says, Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to its buildings. Do you see all these things? He asked. Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. So he's prophesying the destruction of the temple, which happened. But do we have a record of this from before the temple was destroyed? No. Jesus was supposed to have lived and said these things around AD 30. But we don't have records. We only have records after 125 AD, as I said. So it's not a real prophecy. It doesn't mean anything. We don't know what has been embellished and what hasn't. And we know for a fact that certain things from ancient documents have been embellished. I mean, Christians have regularly quote Josephus as proof of the Bible's authenticity, the New Testament in particular, where Josephus appears to say that Jesus was the Messiah. I think the exact words are, he was the Christ. Now, Josephus was a Jewish scholar. Would a Jew say he was the Christ? No. And scholars, the consensus among scholars from the 18th century has been that this is an embellishment on the text. But that doesn't stop Christians still using it regularly to say, here we go, proof that the Bible is authentic. It's not. And it's actually dishonest. That is, if the Christians actually know about it, if they take time to look into this more deeply. So far the whole picture of biblical prophecy, it's not looking good. Now let's turn our attention to modern day prophecy. Some Christians claim that the book of Revelation is being unfolded before our very eyes, as world events apparently take shape and are described in Bible prophecy. Now if you've read Revelation, that's a very, very symbolic book, and symbols can be interpreted in all kinds of ways. And I remember back in the late 1980s, the first Christian book I ever read was called The 1980s Countdown to Armageddon by a writer called Hal Lindsey. And that book was all about prophecy, and it was about, the world's coming to an end, Armageddon's around the corner. And it was all in the framework of the Cold War. The West versus the East, the US versus Russia. And he was trying to shape, scripture around the idea that there was going to be a nuclear attack from Russia that would initiate the end of the world and fulfill Bible prophecy. But look, the Cold War is a distant memory now. We're all buddies with Russia. Now where's that book now? It's in the trash, right? It's useless. But I almost wish it wasn't in the trash, because if Christians would read that now, maybe they'd get a sense of once bitten, twice shy, that the same con is being pulled on them a second time. You got Hal Lindsey. Let me actually look up Hal Lindsey here. He's the author of a book called The Late Great Planet Earth. That was his most famous book from the 1970s. Haven't read that particular one, but judging by Countdown to Armageddon, I can't think it would be up to much. Well, The Late Great Planet Earth has sold, according to Wikipedia, it has sold 28 million copies by the year 1990. 28 million for a piece of crap. Christians. Now, I'm not talking to all of you. I know some of you don't go for this kind of hogwash. But those of you that do, prophecy is not your ace up the sleeve. You don't have a case.